Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. You can get a free audio download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Alan. And Alan is spelled A-L-A-N for those that don't know. Again, audibletrial.com/Alan.
For all of us, it's about predicting where the consumer is going and getting half of it right.
One of the things we want to do is create ads that don't suck.
Embracing change creates great possibility.
I'm Alan Hart, and this is Marketing Today. This is a part of a series of interviews I recorded at the Internet Summit in Raleigh, North Carolina. Today I'm talking to Jared Gardner at SAP Qualtrics. Jared's led search, conversion rate optimization, analytics, and content programs across many verticals for various large companies. He's currently at Qualtrics. Jared focuses on scaling demand generation through unpaid channels. Prior to Qualtrics, Jared worked for the agency Red Door Interactive, helping major brands like Charles Schwab, ASICS, and CenturyLink grow their search footprint. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Jared Gardner. Well, welcome to the show, Jared.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is an awesome place to be doing a podcast interview.
I know, we got a little background noise. It's partly because we're at the Internet Summit here and you're speaking. But I want to start with a question, like, when did you get into search and conversion optimization?
Yeah, so I think it's, as most SEOs, it's kind of one of those stories where nobody really sat out in junior high and said, I wanted to be an SEO when I grew up. Everybody kind of stumbled into it. So I actually was working in broadcast media, and that's where my degree was. So I was working for a radio station. And I just kind of saw the writing on the wall that wasn't the best industry to be in. With at the time, Pandora was really big. And so I decided to kind of pivot a bit, went back to school, was coming out of school and just really wanted a different job. I stumbled upon an SEO opportunity, and I said to myself, like, well, digital marketing and the internet's not getting any smaller, so that's got to be an okay place to work. And then ended up just really enjoying what I was doing and kind of gone from there. That was about 7 years ago.
Nice. When did you end up at Qualtrics, I guess? And now it's SAP Qualtrics.
Yeah, exactly. So I've been at Qualtrics for January will be 2 years, which at Qualtrics is kind of a lifetime. So I was employee about 1,500, and we're almost to 3,000 already in 2 years. So we're growing super quick.
That's amazing. So I know you're talking about scaling search and conversion efforts here at the Internet Summit. Can you tell us how you're scaling or creating that scale at SAP Qualtrics?
Yeah, so kind of alluded to it a minute ago, but Qualtrics is growing super quick. So we're growing revenue at about 40% year over year on a pretty big base. I think our last public revenue shared number was about 500 million. And so all of the marketing channels and demand generation channels really have to keep up with that. So we're kind of focused on really like action every day. Mm-hmm. And so really with that, we try to stay like out of PowerPoint, try to do as little reporting as possible, and just make sure every day we're making our site 1% better every day so that we can keep up with that 40% growth year over year. And so we can get kind of into some of those tactics that we're doing a little bit later, but it's really just kind of revolves around just moving as quick as you can to keep up with that company growth.
Got it. Are there advice or tips you'd give other marketers trying to drive web traffic and conversions?
Yeah. I think on that like execution and move fast side, there's kind of a couple buckets that I really like to focus on. One is what I call content velocity, is just making sure that your website, especially in organic search, there's two ways that you can get traffic. Is one, you can rank for more terms, or two, you can rank better for the terms or get more traffic for the terms that you already have. And so I like to kind of break that into two sections and make sure we're doing both. And so one is like content velocity, and this is one of the hardest things that people struggle with. So I try to make sure that, our site is basically 40% bigger than it was last year. So we're adding more and more pages through things like blogs, things like product feature pages, editorial traffic, things like that. And so I think where that comes into play when we're talking about like budgets and how the whole organization needs to come together and support is that content creation is super expensive, in all honesty. Mm-hmm. Like you need writers, you need designers to design the assets, you're going to need developers to build pages depending on what type of content you're creating. And so just making sure that like the team is enabled to go create all that content, because the SEO team's typically going to say, we need this page and it should live here. But then it actually goes all to other teams to go execute that stuff in most organizations. And I think the more that you can give the SEO team the resources they need to do without relying on other teams, so like having a content writer that it's like really driven directly by the SEO team, and having designers that we have a dedicated bucket of resources for them, that really helps us us like get more pages out quickly. So really like we look at how many new pages do we publish every week, and as kind of a metric of like, are we doing the right things to get where we need to go?
Right. And how are you figuring out what you're going to write on? You know, I mean, that's a lot of content to be creating.
Yeah, totally. So I touched on that in my talk that I did yesterday here at Internet Summit. We do kind of content gap analysis. There's a few tools out there. That's where you really start to get down into the weeds. And so the easiest way is kind of look at what your competitors are ranking for. So we kind of create a database that it's like every keyword that we know of, and then all of our competitors rank for it and our rank for it. And then you can kind of slice and dice that. So for example, if there's a specific keyword phrase that 3 of your competitors are ranking for it and you're ranking on like page 4 or 5 for it, that's like usually a good indicator that if you went and attacked that one, you could probably rank for it if all your competitors are and you have the product. So we try to do that kind of at scale. There's a few tools like Ahrefs that will help you do that. And then there's also some ways you can do it kind of in an Excel sheet, and then that kind of gives you basically a punch list, and it's just go like start at the best opportunity and work your way down. When you run out of opportunities, run the analysis again and start over.
Wow. Are there examples you might share from like past experience or at Qualtrics that you think is good example, good execution of, you know, SEO or conversion optimization?
Yeah. So a little bit more on the conversion side. So honestly, over the last 6 months or so, I've evolved. As we've grown the SEO team, I actually get my hands dirty in SEO a little bit less than I have typically in my career. So I'm really focused on the conversion side right now. And for B2B, there's a lot of different offers, as I call them. So we've been trying to figure out which offer works best on our website. So you think a typical B2B website, you're going to have request demo, you're going to have like a free trial or a free account typically you're going to have content downloads like ebooks and one-pagers, you're going to have webinars, things like that. And so each one of those tends to have a different business value. Like if you think of like the sales pipeline generated from that, which most B2B companies, that's really the metric that marketing teams are measured on, is that demand gen pipeline generation. And so trying to figure out where typically we can pull the lever to say get more free accounts, but those free accounts don't convert from like MQL to opportunity at the same rate. And so it's always this balancing act of like, yeah, we can really juice the top of the funnel with an offer that has lower friction, but those leads are less qualified and end up turning into less pipeline. And so we're honestly kind of, the jury's still out on what the best like in metric is for us, but this last quarter we introduced a watch demo offer on our homepage, and we saw like 178% increase in the number of demo requests. And right now we don't have quite enough data to say like, we definitely know it doesn't convert as well, but we had way more conversions. So we're trying to still figure out if that makes up, if the increase in names or MQLs makes up for the decrease, or marketing qualified leads, sorry for the jargon there, makes up for like the decrease in opportunities that the sales team has to work. So that B2B is tough, man. I think I came from an e-commerce world before I was at Qualtrics, and like B2B analytics, just so there's so many touch points, it's really hard to know which one should get the credit for each. Right.
That can be hard even in, e-commerce maybe not so much, but in other businesses when you've got other advertising, other marketing tactics going on, it's so hard to know exactly what was contributed to that sale.
Absolutely. Yeah, like I said, I used to work on e-commerce, and like there's, we have an event that we have it's called X4, and we had last year we had Obama and Oprah speak at it, so it's a really big event. Yeah. And that one, there's a ticket price sell, so we could go look and say like this channel sold this much ticket revenue, and then I look at that and I'm like, oh man, I miss e-commerce when it was just that simple.
That's great. Well, where do you think the future of search and conversion is going to go?
Yeah, this is always an interesting topic for me. As I was talking about, like I really like to focus on like what can we do this week that's going to start to move our metrics. And so I try not to let myself get too far ahead and like really the bleeding edge. So like people will talk about voice search, things like that, AI and all that. I like to keep it a little more tangible of like, what are some of the headwinds that the industry is going to face in the next year? Right. That like tangibly what's on the horizon. And I think one thing we know for sure is like Google being the monopoly that it is in search here in the US is that it has shareholders it has to keep happy. And those shareholders want to see revenues increase. And I think it's something like 80% of Google's revenues come from paid search clicks. And so the way that they juice their business is by pulling that lever to show more paid search advertising. And so with that, typically we're going to see organic clicks go down. And so I think CMOs and marketing budgets are going to be more and more paid search, because organic search is going to decrease, especially for those like high value keywords. Because, just I think it was in June, Google had a not so great earnings report. And 2 weeks later, they changed the color of the ad symbol to be from like yellow to green. And so like people don't really notice the ad symbol. Like paid click-through rates went up when they did that. And we see them doing that all the time, where they're continuing to make the ad feel more like an organic click. They're showing more ads, making them bigger. There's site links and now 3 headlines, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And so that's always going to, it's a zero-sum game to a certain degree. If there's more paid clicks, there's going to be less organic clicks. And so we have to go up against that. And I think one of the ways you can combat that a little bit is typically that's going to be for very transactional keywords. So like hotel in Raleigh, North Carolina, that's transactional. Like somebody's looking to buy something there.
Right.
Where a lot of companies can focus more on the informational intent keywords. Mm-hmm. So if you think about in a B2B space, like if you use one of our keywords, for example, like what is Net Promoter Score? That's somebody trying to learn something, and you can be that resource on the internet that teaches them and then kind of nurture them down the funnel through like an ebook or something like that. And so the reason why I think that's kind of the future, because people are going to be less willing to bid highly on those keywords that are informational, because they're not going to turn into money right away. So it's going to be hard to get your return on ad spend on a keyword for somebody who's not looking to buy. So I think that's really on the search side, one of the big ones. And then also on organic is Google is actually combating that a bit with keywords that are informational or easy to answer. Like if you look at if you Google what time it is, in the past you would get 10 results that were clocks. Now you don't get any actual search results. It just tells you the time. It tells you the weather. It tells you how tall the Empire State Building is, things like that. And so we call those zero-click results. And Google's going to do that more. So I think it's basically like, if Google can keep you on the site, they're going to with a zero-click search result. Or if they can make money, they're going to show a lot of ads and send them off. Right. And so organic is going to keep getting smaller, more or less. And then on the conversion side, I think the biggest trend that I'm seeing, especially on the B2B business that we focus on, is that consumers are expecting more to B2C experiences and behaviors from companies. So if we think of things like, Spotify and Amazon, people are really used to like this frictionless sign-up process, don't have to talk to anybody, signing up for Netflix compared to like buying Comcast. Like if you think about that, how much less friction there is, you like give them your credit card, boom, you're done, versus like call somebody shows up, you got to talk about different plans, you got to sign a contract, things like that. And so traditionally a B2B has been more of that Comcast experience where it's like request a demo, we're going to have 5 phone calls, we're going to send you a contract, you're going to go to your legal team and have that red line, then we're going to negotiate, then I'm going to lower the price, and finally 6 months later you're going to get a license for our software. And I think you see some of these literally hot B2B companies right now, like Atlassian's, who their stock's just killing it, and so they own Jira and Trello and some other like productivity type applications. Like they well over $1 billion in revenue a year. They don't have a single salesperson, so it's all self-driven sign-up type experience, like onboarded themselves. And like Zoom is another great example of that. I don't know if you followed their IPO last year or earlier this year, but it just blew up, and they are all like product driven, self sign up. The product's just so great that you get one person using it and it just spreads like wildfire in an organization.
Cool. Well, Jared, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been enlightening.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. It was great to see you out here at Internet Summit. This is my first year here, and I think I'll definitely be coming back.
Yeah. Hi, it's Alan again. Marketing Today was created and produced by me. If you're new to Marketing Today, please feel free to write us a review on iTunes or your favorite listening platform. Don't forget to subscribe and tell your friends and colleagues about the show.
I love to hear from listeners, and you can contact me at marketingtodaypodcast.com. There you'll also find complete show notes with links to anything we talk about on any episode. You can also search our archives.
I'm Alan Hart, and this is Marketing Today.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. You can get a free audio download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Alan. And Alan is spelled ALAN for those that don't know. Again, audibletrial.com/Alan.